Because my office is a wreck. Like
Wow.
I have so many books. Oh,
Okay.
okay. Okay.
I think we're live.
Okay, I think we're live. So, good evening. I am Jenny Rosenblum of Jenny Reads, and I am one of the featured bloggers for Coastal Magic. And tonight, I have the pleasure of talking with two authors who will be at Coastal Magic in February, Daytona Beach. Come on, people. I mean, where else do you want to be in February? Even though that tonight, all three of us that are here are Texas gals. We're waiting on Victoria Sue, but she had a little snitch glitch. Something went on. So if she pops back in, that's great. But meanwhile, the Texans are taking over. And if we had planned this right, we could have all done it from one location. But we're all at our own places. So welcome. Tonight, we're going to be talking about children and families and how they are in your books and how your readers relate to them. It is National Communicate with Your Child Day. So perfect timing for us. We didn't plan any of this. Jennifer did all, but we'll take credit for now. So to get started, I'm just going to have our two authors introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with some questions. If you have any questions while you're watching, please put them in the comments, and they'll be fed to us to go through. So Mary, would you like to start with a general introduction?
Sure. My name's Mary Mancusi, and I'm really excited to come back to Coastal Magic because I had to miss last year, and it's one of my favorite conventions every year to come to. I probably would come even if I wasn't an author, just because I love hanging out with everyone and being at the beach, and it's such a fun time with fun, panels, and I love the murder mystery. Sorry, I was supposed to talk about me, and I'm just talking about Coastal Magic. All right, I also write books. I like to I like to say I write Disney books and dragon books. So I just had a Disney book come out called Sally's Lament. It's a Nightmare Before Christmas twisted tale. It's back on the USA Today list this week. I just found out today, so that's exciting.
That's awesome.
I also write children's dragon books. New Dragon City is on both the Florida state reading list, the Sunshine State list, as well as the Texas Bluebonnet list this year. So I've been doing a lot of school visits, talking to school children from grades 3 to 8 about dragons and reading and writing. And it's been really fun and really, really exhausting, but it's fun to talk to adults tonight. So that'll be a change for me.
Great. And Sasha.
First, Mary, that cover's gorgeous. So now I have a little bit of a cover envy thing going on. I don't write dragons, so it would make sense for me to have a dragon cover. Anyways, I'm Sasha Summers, and I write mostly romance. I have a couple of women's fiction, and I have one YA, which is the one I could not find to actually show tonight, but there you go. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about kids. I have a lot of kids in my books, and maybe it's because I had a lot of kids as a mom. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
What's a lot?
Well, 4. I mean, 4, and then they're extra people that, have kind of become mine over the time. Over the years. So yeah.
Yes. All right. So let's get started with back in the beginning. Take you back in time. So was there an aha moment when you said, okay, I just have to put kids in the books. I have to include families and children, or I want to address books that are for families and children? Or did it just kind of evolve? After that horror movie thing that you were writing didn't work out, you decided to jump over, or who wants to jump in?
You can go ahead, Mary. You want
Okay,
to?
well, I started out writing adult books, mostly like kind of chiclety, funny, light, bantery type of books with romance. And this was around 2005, and my editor was basically thinking, oh, you have kind of a young voice. Would you like to try to write YA? And I hadn't really thought about it, but it was the time when YA was really starting to come into its own and, having that heyday, and everyone was buying YA. So I actually sold 4 YA books before I had ever even written one, just off like a proposal. So, and 25 pages written. So that was a different time, much more bleak now, but that's sort of how I kind of fell backwards into it. And then as YA over the years got older, and really started appealing more to adult readers, and publishers kind of pushing the age on that to like, okay, these are more mature YA books, they're more for adults. I found my sweet spot was really that tween market. And so I thought maybe I should move to middle grade. And I love writing for middle grade, mostly because I get to interact with kids at the schools and I see their enthusiasm and I know how important. I mean, there's all these studies out right now about how kids aren't reading anymore, it's like really, really grim. And especially when we had COVID, we had that group of kids that has gone through school, including my daughter, who's in 8th grade now, who never got that modeled reading by librarians and teachers and reading out loud in those early years. And so they need books for them, and they don't have to be big lesson books with a capital L on them. There's so many books out there for kids. They're like, we got to push these messages at them, and that's fine. But adults are reading fairy smut, right? And I mean that in the most loving way. But there's no, like, you read Fourth Wing, you're reading it for fun. You're not reading it to like learn something, and that's okay. And I think it's the same for kids. And we need those books where it's just like, let the kids enjoy reading. And I think that gets lost sometimes. Yeah. So that is my soapbox on that one, and sort of how I fell into writing for kids.
Yeah, and as an ex-children's librarian, I'm right there with you. A lot of the parents who wanted the kids reading for messages, and it's like, let's put joy in here. Let's Sasha, how about you?
Well, I don't have the excitement of writing for kiddos. I do, however, really agree with everything you said, because all of my kids grew up on Percy Jackson, the Warriors books, all of that, because you want them to have fun. And if books are a place where they feel welcome and kind of get lost in it, then they're going to love reading for their whole life. So yes, I think a strong foundation and enjoyment of reading is important. Otherwise, it's a chore for them. That makes me sad. So, but for my books, I just kind of, it was just kind of organic to have kiddos in them because they're just such a regular part of my life. So it was kind of like a natural thing just to have them there. And when I started writing for Harlequin, their category, they're pretty keen on having kids and families. So it just kind of worked. And I love writing them. I think they're a lot of fun, and they add just kind of some mischief and mayhem to otherwise kind of steady stories. So.
Okay. All right, so now's that time when I'm going to ask you the embarrassing question. So you both have children. Are your kids in your books, or experiences or things they've done? Has that made it into your books?
Go ahead, Sasha.
They'll never watch this.
No, they won't. They totally won't. Yeah, I mean, I would say that there's definitely some experiences. This story, this one is you were talking about teens. And this one, you can see it's tabbed because working on the sequel. The teen boy in it, Nick, was very much kind of an homage to my son Jacob, because he was, I mean, now he's 24, but he had a difficult time being a teen, and it just broke my heart seeing him. And so I tried to I don't know, this again for him was just kind of like not that he's read it, but just kind of the way that he navigated through it and how proud I was of him for doing that. So yeah, but I'm sorry, remind me of the question, because I just totally went down the rabbit hole and my dog is like sniffing on my foot. So please tell me.
We'll get to pets later. We're working with kids right now. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Hollywood said don't work with either, but oh well. Right?
No, there's no choice, right? If they exist.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. So you answered the question because it was personal experiences.
That's right. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Very good, Sasha. Mary.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely used my daughter when she was younger's experience. I wrote a romance under the name Mary Madison. It was called Just This Night for Berkeley, and it was a single dad book. And I used a lot of my daughter's antics, and my husband, I kind of pulled from both of them, their interaction and how they had such a loving relationship. So I definitely used both her mischievous side and then the loving side of, a daddy-daughter relationship. And that with my YA or middle grade books, I do not use her because her friends do read my books. And several of them are fans. And so that would be really embarrassing to her. And I really try not to embarrass her, whether on the internet or in a book or anything. So I don't want to do anything that would be, make her feel uncomfortable.
Just being as a mom is probably embarrassing enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to keep my kids that I got points every time I embarrassed them and I was going to win the prize.
Yeah, when I want to embarrass her, I try to use like all this weird slang Gen Alpha uses now, like, skibbity toilet. It's giving. What is like it's fire. And she's like, Mom, I'm so stop. Don't talk like that.
Oh God, you'll be cool again. Don't worry when they get to. So when you're writing about kids, and I joked, Hollywood always said, don't work with kids or pets. Do you ever have problems bringing across relationships between parents and kids, or maybe something that's viewed as an unconventional family, and how you've dealt with that? Mary, you want to start?
Okay, sure. Well, in New Dragon City, I really wanted to explore a parental and kid relationship, kind of the throes of divorce, but in a dragon apocalypse setting, right? So we have a dragon apocalypse going on, but the parents are at odds in it, and the dad is very, very anti-dragon. He's sort of a prepper. He's been, like the government says the only good dragon is a dead dragon. We're gonna like draw the line in the sand, and the mom has joined kind of a dragon's animal rights group, for lack of a better term, where they're a bunch of scientists and they're like, maybe we can figure out a way to get along with the dragons and we don't have to kill them all. We can kind of like work with them and find a peace that way. And so the kid's really caught in the middle of that. And, the two parents are not going to sway on their side. And how do you deal with the fact you love both of your parents and you want approval from both of your parents? And yet they are so anti each other. And I think that's something that so many kids go through in real life without the dragon part. And so, just couching a fun action adventure with dragons, but really at the core of it, like a family story. And that's what I wanted to tell with New Dragon City.
Yeah, but I can't wait to read that. It sounds really great.
Thank you.
So Sasha, before you answer, we did get a comment that says the kids in Sasha's books are the best. They bring humor, especially, but also sweet moments.
Aw.
So shout out to you.
Thank you. That's very nice. Let's see. Recently, I wrote Must Love Bees, and it was an interesting dynamic because the hero, he's on the spectrum, and he actually is raising his, well, I don't want to give too much away, but anyways, he's the biological father of his daughters. And so he's having to navigate being a single parent when he has a really hard time expressing his emotions. And so the whole concept of a 5-year-old and a tween kind of teaching him how to love and how to show that. And it, can be messy, but communicating was so much more important than just their somber silence, because he's worried about something happening to them because of what happened to their mom. And in the process, he's just kind of stifling them and just overprotective. And so, they don't feel like they can do anything right. And they're always trying to prove themselves to him. And in the process, he's just trying to love them the only way he knows how. So it was really, really fun to see. I mean, it was emotional, but I like that too. It was really cool to see him kind of come to terms with the fact that, yes, there was a chance he was going to be hurt, but they were going to love him anyways, even if he made mistakes. And so I really try to keep it authentic, because parenting is messy and it's not easy, period. It doesn't matter what age they are. I have adult children now, and it's just as exciting as it was when they were toddlers. So I really like writing different age groups for that reason. Teens are so much fun because they can add that antagonistic element to it, and little kids say things that adults aren't going to say, so that's always fun. But yeah, I think that writing across the spectrum as far as ages can make it really, really cool.
Yeah. I have a dear friend who, when I was pregnant, told me, little bodies, little problems, big bodies, big problems.
That is amazing and so true.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So Sasha, what do you find is the easiest or the hardest thing about writing family dynamics?
The easiest is the dialogue, because I love, kids again. I mean, I don't know about you, Mary, but when I'm writing, I'm kind of in a movie, you know what I mean? So it's like I'm kind of writing what I'm seeing. So I think it's really easy to kind of translate what I'm seeing in my head. I know that sounds kind of weird. The hardest part is just to make sure that I don't go too silly with it, because sometimes, you want the happy, and I think as a mom, you're so protective of your children So when you're writing, you tend to want to protect those children, even though they're fictional. So you have to kind of pull that Band-Aid off. And it's like, okay, no, they have to go through this, we have to experience grief and pain. And I think that's harder for me because I want to protect them, even though they're not real.
Yeah. So Mary, what's hardest and easiest for you with
Sometimes getting the voice perfect is can be hard for kids because if you're writing contemporary, if you're writing realistic, how much do you pull from current vernacular? I was making jokes about Skibidi Toilet earlier, and of course you wouldn't want to put that in a book because it would date it really, really quickly. But at the same time, I read a lot of middle grade books where you're like, oh, this person had kids in the early 2000s because I can absolutely see the expressions. I mean, you don't want a book now where kids are referencing a glitch in the Matrix. They don't even know what the Matrix is, but you see that all the time in books. Or the kids are all obsessed with 80s music. Like there are some eighth graders who are obsessed with 80s music, but that's very minor. Most of them like Taylor Swift and Chappell Roan and, Sabrina Carpenter. But you also don't want to, I mean, you could mention like Taylor because Taylor's pretty like she's going to be around a while. She has been around a while. She's not a flash in the pan. Chappell Roan, who knows? Like maybe next year she won't be cool. And then you put that in a book, then next year when it comes out, it's going to be dated. And so I think, being topical and current and not sounding like old or whatever but yet not using the real slang like how they really talk can be very big balancing act. So
Okay. So Mary, what do you think needs to be in there to make it sound authentic? The family dynamic part.
Oh, the family dynamic part. So I think that, in a lot of middle grade books, they just get rid of the parents. And I think, whether the parents are dead, I mean, the Disney trope, right, is the dead parents.
Kill off the mom, first thing.
Yeah, exactly. Or the parents are just gone. They're just absent because it's easier to have an action adventure story. But that's not most kids' reality. Whether they are close to their parents or estranged for their parents or fighting with their parents all the time, or their parents. Either way, their parents are the biggest influence in a kid's life or a teen or a tween's life. They are literally they're around them all the time. And so to just remove them, I think is inauthentic. So I like to have stories personally, I write them that the parents are there and maybe they're giving good advice and maybe they're not giving good advice. Maybe they're being too strict. Maybe they're being too lenient. I mean, you can have any spectrum, but they should be there. They should be present in the kid's life. And you could have I'm not saying oh, they both have to be married and together. Obviously, you could have an absentee parent, but even the absentee parent, that has to be a effect on the kid. That has to play a part in the story instead of just being oh, the parents went to Europe and the kids are home and let's have an adventure and forget all about them.
Yeah, that's true. Every middle school book, I know it was there's just the parents weren't involved, and it's whose reality?
Yeah.
Sasha, what about you? What do you do to keep everything authentic?
I think again, it's just kind of showing all the sides of the kids. I've read some books where kids are kind of used as a prop, if you will. And I just feel like they're little people. So to give them quirks, and I like several of my little girls, and well, I guess one of my little boys, they've had kind of speech impediments where they're tripping over certain letters at a certain age, kind of thing. Just to try and make them real and messy and chaotic. Because I think again that you don't want them there to be the thing that propels a story just because they're there. I try to just make them a real person. And it can be challenging depending on their age, obviously, and how they're going to fit into the story. But I think it makes the story richer if they're a fully fleshed out character.
Okay, great. All right, now this is going to show me being a little naive because I have not read all your books. Sorry.
I'll forgive you this time.
Not required.
I'm working on it, but no, this reading challenge people for Coastal Magic who are reading every author. Oh my gosh, I just come to them.
Meditation. Yes, I know. It's amazing.
Yeah. So, sorry, I got distracted by shiny things. I'm going to take the question that just popped up instead of my one that I was going with. So what do you think are the must-haves when creating a new character? And do you have to change anything significantly when it's a child character? Besides they're shorter,
I mean, I think you want to make them, and no matter who the character is, you have to make them into a full person, and that means strengths and weaknesses, and a backstory. Where have they been? I mean, a kid may not have as much of a backstory. You know, you don't write a middle grade and have like in a romance where I had this tragic backstory, and that's going to influence a lot. Like, but you do want to know where the kid came from, and what their experience has been. Are they middle class? Are they lower class? Are they city, country, whatever? Because that's going to shape who they are. um you can do, I just actually did a school visit yesterday where I taught middle school kids how to create characters, so it's kind of fresh on my mind actually. And we did character creation sheets, and I taught them how you have to ask your characters who they are, what they want, and what's stopping them from getting what they want in every story, even the villain, because the villain also has the same kind of motivation. And I think that's the building blocks of characters. If you know those three things about your characters, you can get started, and all of the other stuff can come.
Yeah, I would agree. GMC, goal, motivation, conflict, definitely. Every little character, if they're going to be on the page, unless they're like just someone who is there for, a paragraph, it's good to have that information, because that helps you think about and decide what they're going to say, what they're going to do, all that good stuff. But I totally agree.
Yeah. And kids should have it too. I mean, like if you have kids in your family books, like the kids, like you said, should not just be props. They have their own motivations and goals and all of that. So
Definitely. And sometimes the more mischievous, the better,
yeah, maybe their goal is candy, but
Yeah.
it's still a goal for them, and it's been important.
Exactly.
Oh, God. Yeah, all of us have that one mischievous child.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to ask you to dig into your past. What in your background gives you a unique perspective for families and kids in your books that you're willing to share in PG circumstances?
Sasha,
I
it's your
did
turn
not
to go
give them the
first.
questions ahead of time.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't mention that one. Mary, do you want to go first while I think about this?
I got one. My dad was an administrator at my high school. And so he had an office in my high school.
Oh,
And
Oh, wow.
which sometimes was good because I could go get a pass, or maybe get in the teacher's room and get a Coke, but often bad because he was literally the one. Back then you had to print out the report cards, right? And so he had to print out the example report card or progress report, and he always used mine. And so he'd get my grades before I can. So I couldn't, like, at the last second to my teachers, like, make a deal, or, I'll do this extra credit or whatever. And he would see them beforehand, and then I couldn't like prep or anything. And also sometimes the teachers, who were all his friends, would be like, oh, Mary was like, mouthing off in class, or didn't do her assignment. They'd go to his office and chat about me. And it was really kind of invasive and awful. So, yeah, I don't know, that I feel like that influenced me a little bit.
yeah. I worked in my kids' elementary school. And yeah, I had a principal bring me my daughter one day which was really odd for me to discipline, but later he told me it was because he couldn't stop laughing at what she had done. And so he just needed me to step in. Yeah.
But what'd she do? Now I want to know.
I know.
Okay, so she has told this story and she won't watch this. So yeah, she was in the little girl's restroom teaching everybody how to scream into the corner tiles so you can make it echo in kindergarten.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So Sasha, you got any dirt in your background?
Well, I think really it's not exactly, when both my parents were into community theater. So I grew up like playing Barbies in the aisles of the community theaters. And I was just surrounded by people that really appreciated stories. So I think for me, it's not so much about what I've been through as much as what I kind of was exposed to and watched. So storytelling was always so important to my family. Because if my dad wasn't, in the show, he was directing it. My mom was almost always in the show. So it was just kind of like something you did. You told stories and people were engrossed and entranced and they just ate it up, and it was important. So I think for me, I'm not much of a performer. I'm super awkward. but I think writing kind of translated for me as a way to kind of share things. And so, yeah, now I love writing stories.
Yeah, great. All right, so if you could jump into any of your fictional families in your books, would you have liked to grow up in any of those? Or is there another fictional family that you didn't write that you think would have been cool to be in? Hmm.
It's hard because most stories are just traumatic, right?
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of like, and my family was happy and at the end.
Yeah,
Like, I definitely don't want to be in the Frozen family, like
no,
with Elsa locked in her room. And
and it's just too cold. I'm sorry.
yeah,
It's just too
yeah,
cold.
yeah, definitely.
I would like to be in my Hill family in my Big Book series. It was a group of women. It's 3 sisters and their 2 aunts. And they just are the coolest chicks ever. Like I would write 9 million more books in that series because I loved hanging out with them. Because they bake a lot and they eat a lot and they talk a lot and they do things together and they just have a great time. So I wouldn't mind being a member of that family. I think that would be fun.
Cool, cool. Okay, so did you have any particular authors or stories growing up that now influence your writing?
So I really loved a book by Robin McKinley called The Hero and the Crown. I don't know if you've heard of that or read it, but it's a fantasy novel about a girl, princess who is a dragon slayer. And I love that because when I was growing up, it was usually the boys were the heroes and the girls were the sidekicks. And so to have a princess, like she discovers how to create a burn salve that will make her immune to dragon fire.
Oh, wow.
And she's sort of the outcast in the palace, and she goes out and she kills the biggest baddest dragon in the land and almost dies from it. It's a very dark book, but I loved this book and I just think it was so cool. Like the princess slayed her own dragons. My dragon book has a boy in it, but I still love the girl power of that story.
Girl power is a good thing. I don't think of one particular book. My parents would get the books on tape. I mean, I'm old, so there you go. And they had their really beautiful illustrated ones. I actually think I have them because I wanted to share them with my kids. But playing them back, they're the original unedited ones. So like The Little Mermaid is so traumatic. And I'd forgotten about it until I played it. And it's got these beautiful voice actors and this beautiful music. So you're totally swept away. And then it's like, oh my gosh. And then there was like the something giant, the ice giant or something. And it's the same thing. All of these books that I grew up in, or these stories, they're all super traumatic. And I'm like, okay, But I liked them at the time. I thought they were great. So that might be why initially some of the books I wrote were a little bleak. My Greek series was definitely no children in those. And they were all very, very sad. And I'm like, well, that makes sense now.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have to navigate any cultural differences in your books from your culture? Do any of your characters? No?
No.
No.
Okay, come on. Isn't it culturally different for dragons?
That's a point I'm gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the dragons and humans are clearly at war and they have different cultures in the sense that, and then they are actually more alike than they think. The humans think the dragons are the monsters because they are the invaders who came and destroyed everything and burned everything down and the dragons pretty much think the same thing about the humans. They're just being dragons. They're hunting for food, burning stuff down, just doing dragon stuff, no big deal. And then like these little creatures on the ground are like shooting them out of the sky and killing their friends and family, and they're going to defend themselves.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of miscommunication between the two species, and that's sort of the moral of the story. Not moral of the story, but like the crux of the story is the boy and the dragon, they bond and they start to realize that perhaps there's a way to bring everyone together if they could just understand one another. So in that sense, yes.
Okay. Sasha?
It's not really cultural per se, but I have written a couple of deaf characters because I in college I took a lot of sign language and was part of the deaf culture club there when my husband was at A&M. So there's a little bit of that, but it's not per se, it's just kind of integrating the language barrier. But I have enjoyed doing that because I think that it's interesting to learn different forms of communication. And so, you have to kind of think through that as far as how you're going to put that on page too, because it's harder when you're not verbal.
Yeah, I can't imagine how, yes, to write that has got to be a challenge.
I actually thought of another one because, as soon as I start thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, I wrote this whole other book. In Dangerous Secrets, the Frozen prequel, Queen Iduna, also known as Mother, is Northuldra, which is the indigenous group in Norway, or the pseudo Norway of Arendelle. And she has to hide her identity her whole life because the Arendellians and the Northuldra are at odds because of a fight between them that killed the king. And so she comes and she falls in love with the prince, and she has to pretend that she's not where she's from, because if she tells anyone that she's Northuldran, they will kill her. And so she falls in love with the prince as a peasant girl, and he falls in love with her, and she cannot tell him who she really is. So that's why they call it Dangerous Secrets. And that one's a real tearjerker because as you've seen Frozen, you know what happens to them in the end. So
yeah, which leads me to a totally personal question here. You both write for traditional publishing houses. Is there any restrictions put on where you can or can't go with children as characters?
I mean, I have not, reached that.
Guidelines might be a better word than restrictions, but no, there's not a demographic that they're looking to hit.
I mean, I would say in middle grade, they don't really want romance. So you're pretty restricted on having any even crushes. Most of them don't even want a little kiss at the end. So we kind of have to steer away from that. Yeah, I usually code it with friendship, like the boy and the girl are best friends and they love each other in friendship ways. Because the kids actually want that kind of stuff. And, we really should have that more tween audience, tween book range where they are falling in love and having innocent romance. Because there was an 8th grader yesterday at the middle school I was at who was carrying around Iron Flame and like, yeah, it's the 4th time I've read Iron Flame. I'm like, wow, that's so. Yeah, but okay, if your mom knows, that's cool. I'm not going to judge what you read. We all snuck our mother's romances or grandma's romances.
Yeah.
But there's a hunger for, romantic stories, and sometimes they can't get a hold of them because in the middle grade sphere, it's very much like, no, just friend zone.
Right. All right. So of the children you've written as characters, are there any of them that you'd like to do an adult version to see or anticipate what it would be later on in their life?
It's weird because when I've written them recently, it's hard for me to fast forward, if that makes sense, to when they're an adult. I guess probably I would be interested in writing Natalie's. She was the teen daughter in one of the first books I ever wrote, and it would be kind of cool to go back now because that's been 2012. So she's an adult now, right? So that would be kind of cool because that world was really fun. It was a Hollywood-based series and everything. So yeah, that might be kind of fun. It's not something that I really thought about, but now I'm going to be pondering this question. Yeah, I'm going to go. Good question.
Can't claim credit. That came from the audience. So.
Oh, yeah. Whoever it was, good question.
Yeah.
I would love to know from my readers who they would want to hear. You know what I mean? Because it's like who their favorite characters were, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I wrote a vampire series, The Blood Coven Vampires, and it was about 2 twins, Sunny and Rain, and they were about 16, 17 in the series. And I think it would be really fun to do an adult version of, where are they now and what they're doing. They're still with their vampire boyfriends. That would be pretty cool, actually. I'd like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I know as a reader, sometimes I get to the end of the book and it's like, no, I want to know. I want to know more. I want to know where this character is going. I want to know, in 5 years, Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, something to tuck in the back.
Mhm.
Among your family and friends, who I hope are reading your books, are there any elements that has sparked discussions or they were surprised by or caused you to react in a different way with a sequel type thing? Any catalysts from there?
Well, do you want to go ahead, Sasha?
No, you go ahead.
When I was writing New Dragon City, it was during the pandemic, and we were all stuck at home, including my daughter, who was in fourth grade at the time, and she hated it. She's a very social kid. She's a dancer. She wants to be out and doing stuff. So and she's an only child, so it was awful for her. And so she'd come home after, like at lunchtime from upstairs on Zoom, school. She'd come down to the kitchen or whatever and look just so like down. And so I was like, well, I'm writing a new book about dragon. Do you want to hear a chapter? And the first day she's like, oh, okay, whatever, And so I read her the first chapter. And I didn't really think much of it at the time. And then the next day she came down and she's like, where's the next chapter? And I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this. And so I had to write that book so fast because every day she came down. So I'd rough draft it in the afternoon. I polished it up as best I could in the morning because at noon she was going to come down and demand that next chapter. So talk about writing a book with your target audience, like literally sitting beside you. And she was very vocal about what she liked and didn't like. And she drew me pictures of the dragons. And so that was nice too. And so it's funny because that book has become so popular and being on state reading lists and stuff. And I really believe that part of it was because I literally was writing it for a particular fourth grader. And now fourth graders all over Texas and Florida are reading it. And that's pretty cool, to think about.
That is. Yeah.
Does she know that she helped with this?
Oh yeah. She knows the whole story, and she gives me permission to share it. The funny thing is, she's never read the final book though, because it goes through editing and it changes a lot. And I'm like, you should read the final, see what happened, like how it all turned out. And she's like, no, I like the version you read me. I don't want any other version. So
That's
awesome.
Cool. That's really cool.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, really, no controversy. I mean, I think the one that people in my family talk about the most is Accidentally Family, just because it has a lot of drama and stuff, and I do have a lot of drama, unfortunately, in my family all the time. So it's great because I always have material coming in. But yeah, I think that's probably the one because I have several children at different ages, and they're all struggling with different things. And so yeah, a lot of people will kind of why did you go this way with Nick, or why did you go this way with Honor, that kind of thing, but not controversy per se.
Okay, so I'm gonna go backwards a little bit, and we talked about feeling authentic and dialogue and things like that, but are there things that you just I'm trying to figure out politically correct and nice way to say this. and part of the Texan in me wants to go, bless your hearts, but I'm trying to figure was there's something that you knew needed to be in your character that you weren't sure how your readers were going to handle? Something you felt needed to be there because of your perspective or to make it feel authentic to you, but you just weren't sure about your audience. And how did it turn out?
So in New Dragon City, his dad's a prepper and they're in the apocalypse. And so I don't usually put guns in my middle grade books. In fact, I've done video game books where they're like fighting in the future, but I invent like weapons, like laser swords and, crossbows. I don't like to put guns in the book, but it just felt so inauthentic to not have a prepper have guns and be shooting dragons in the apocalypse. Right. And so I made the decision to put that in. He's a big gun person. And he wants the kid to learn how to shoot and shoot dragons and stuff, and it becomes a point of contention where the kid thinks he can do it and then he can't. And I did have a couple of librarians be like, we weren't quite sure because it had guns in it, but then we decided it was fine because of the situation. So I think you just have to do it responsibly and realistically and not glorify it. So that's I guess that's my story of that.
I think going again back to accidentally family, the teen girl in it self-harms, and she was very she has a lot of emotional issues and concerns, and so that was hard because I mean you're talking about something that a lot of people shy away from, but I feel like it was to give her a voice in a way that could be productive, if you will, for people that might actually be in that situation with a child, because it's unfortunately it happens a lot, and so writing Diana was kind of it was hard because again you don't want it to be just laid on real thick and manipulative, and I don't think that she came across that way or her story came across that way, but yeah, it was, I knew my editor and I went back a bit about a scene in particular because she was like, are we pushing too hard here? And I was like, well, I don't think so, but if it's something you guys feel really strongly about, then we can talk about it. And it ended up staying in the book, which I'm glad for. But yeah, it was tricky. I mean, anytime you touch on a subject that is, potentially, by guns, worrisome, if you will, you have to be careful.
Yeah.
Respectful of it.
Yes.
Yeah. When I write for Disney, there's a lot of things, especially with their old properties, that they have guardrails that I have to do. So, for example, I did a Robin Hood book, and so they gave me a list of things like we don't want to have King Richard go to the Crusades. We don't want to have Robin dress up as a gypsy. We don't really want hangings. Like, so, and I was like, wow, that's most of your movie. But so we have to make it authentic to the original property, but also sensitive to today's audience,
Sure.
basically. So you can kind of toe a line on that.
Yeah.
Right. All right, let's talk about humor for a moment. Because with kids, you just gotta laugh at a lot of things. Can you remember a fun scene that you wrote? Maybe one that made you just absolutely crack up? And then tell the truth. Was it based on one of your kids?
Okay, I feel really bad. It's not here, and I cannot remember the name of the book. Oh my gosh.
Tell us the scene though.
Okay, so the scene is it's a single dad with triplet little girls, and they're adorable, and they were very, very different characters. But they're helping him garden, and they're just outside. And one of them is very diligently, doing, and the other one is, kind of, picking the flowers and the other one is literally filling up her boots with mud and gathering worms and shoving it in, totally not paying attention to anything else, having the best time. And then of course, ends up getting the other one involved. And before it's all over, it just becomes like this mud slick. And I had a lot of fun writing that one because it was cute. As far as based on my children, absolutely. Just happens to be that the one that was playing in the mud was definitely my son. But my kids grew up in dress-up clothes all the time. So you would look outside our window at the backyard, and who knew if they were the boys or the girls, because they were Spider-Man or princesses or whatever. So, but yes, I think when he did that, he was wearing a little fireman boots and a purple tutu and a mask. And he was having more fun with the mud and the worms chasing his sister around. So yeah, I thought that was a great scene too, yeah. Yeah, and I laughed a lot when I wrote it because it was
Well, this one actually got cut because my editor thought it was too scary, but it really happened to my daughter and her friend, and I love the scene so much, so I'm sad that it was cut. But basically, it's in a story called Princesses Inc., and these girls, these 12-year-olds decide they're going to start a princess babysitting company where they dress up as princesses, and like so they have a little competitive edge on the babysitting. Anyway, they're babysitting this little girl and her brother, and they run out, and they've been eating glow sticks, and so this happened to my daughter. She chewed on the glow sticks, and it was dark, and her friend runs out from the bedroom and is like, Avalon's face is burning, her mouth is burning, and then we come out and she's running down the hall, and all you can see is like the glow stick goo all over her mouth, like glow in the dark mouth. And I was like, calm, poison control. It's fine. That stuff isn't even toxic. Turns out they're like, yeah, we get this a lot. So I thought it was funny for the book because I'm like, it's a great babysitting thing because it would be horrifying if you were a kid, but it's actually harmless, so it's no big deal. But they decided it was too scary.
Oh, that's hysterical.
So cutting room floor, but someday I'll use that scene for sure.
Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah. That's just that was too good to cut.
Yeah. They made me do something stupid, like the kid got his hand stuck in the toilet or something. And I was like,
Oh.
that's so boring.
Yeah, I feel like, boo.
I can much relate to the glow stick so much better.
Yeah.
All right, I have two more questions and we'll be wrapping up. So is there a specific character that readers relate to the most? The one that you hear about constantly, reviews always mention. Who and why do you think it is that makes that character so relatable?
Well, Sasha looks like she's thinking, so
Yeah,
I'll give you one. It's an older one. I wrote a book called Gamer Girl a while back, and it was
Great book.
about a girl. Yeah, she went to high school, a new high school, and she got bullied for her drawing, and it was based on experience that I had in junior high. And the amount of girls that were in high school or junior high that wrote to me, like, I'm just like Maddie. My parents got divorced. I went to a new school. I've been bullied. And now I feel like I should be able to do my art, and I feel like empowered. I mean, they didn't use the word empowered, but like they were like, I feel like I can, fight back against the bullies kind of thing. And I felt so good about that because I didn't have that happy ending. Like my bully, nah, he got the best of me. Like I don't draw anymore. Like I gave up drawing because that's what you do when you're, 14 and being bullied and you don't know what to do. And so I was able to give her a happy ending and hopefully give real kids a happy ending through that. So that made me feel really good.
Nice, nice.
I think my YA book, Cowboys and Kisses, Allie is moved in the middle of high school. And so she has huge culture shock because she comes from a big city and they move to her grandmother's place in the middle of nowhere, Texas, basically. It's like Johnson City where we have our family has a ranch there. And so it's just her trying to navigate, find friends, get used to the new normal, without being angry at her parents all the time, because she has a huge amount of anger when they first get there. Why are you doing this to me, kind of thing. And a lot of it is because she's kind of lost her way where she was. And so they're trying to just start over fresh. And I've had a lot of young girls, but a lot of parents that actually were like, some of the way you had those conversations helped me take a step back and realize that I'm not talking to my daughter or son in a way that makes them able to communicate, that I'm not providing them with the safe space. So that was really cool because I think sometimes you forget that even though you're a parent, you have to be accessible, in a non-aggressive way. So that was cool. I really like that.
Cool. So Sasha, we'll start with you. What do you want readers to take away from your book?
Hopefully they're just on a little mini mental vacation, that they, meet some people in the pages that they like, that they enjoy the journey. And when they close it, there's that just kind of satisfaction, happy, satisfied. That was fun. I feel refreshed. I can face the world again. If they're having a bad day, it'll cheer them up, kind of thing. That's my goal. It's just to distract and entertain and hopefully make them smile.
Nice. Mary, what about you?
For my middle grade books, especially, I want them to be like, wow, I can read a big book. A lot of kids are afraid of reading a book with any depth. And, New Dragon City isn't small. And so, but it has lots of action adventure. It moves really quick. And it's about things that they may be interested in. So, having that sense of accomplishment of like, I finished a big book and I did that. And maybe now I can try something else, another book. So that's what I really love.
Awesome.
Great. All right. So before all of us trudge to Daytona Beach, it's going to be so challenging.
Why isn't it now?
February. And if any of you out there would like to join us, coastalmagicconvention.com. Check us out. I think there's a bunch of spaces left. Cool hotel, nice venue.
Great people. Great people. Oh my gosh.
Bring energy. Last year was my first year. And I was hitting that bed really out. It was just, it was amazing. Some of these ladies, I don't think they slept. They just kept going. So if anyone who's attending or anyone else out there wants to find out more about you, can you give us a quick where they can find you, what social media you're on, and how they could get in touch with you to learn more about your books? Sasha, you want to start?
I have a website, but it is woefully out of date. I will be very upfront. I'm most frequently on Facebook and Instagram. I have a TikTok account, and I don't think I've posted anything for, I don't know, 2 years. So there you go. Stick with Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, I would say the same. Facebook and Instagram are probably the best places to have updated information about me.
Right. Or come and meet you in person in February.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Bring comfortable shoes and your credit card. And
And your bathing suit.
and your bathing suit. Yes. Yes. So last year it was a little chilly a couple days
Yeah.
for swimming, but absolutely gorgeous. All right. Thank you, ladies, for spending
Thank
the evening
you.
with us.
Thank
The
you.
Texans are coming, so watch out, Florida.
Yes. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.